we're so low on time that I'm sort of blasting through this massively. Cake makeup, this stuff is basically like the step up from Snazzaroo. It's the same thing, but better. So these are the ones we tend to use, are Ben Nye ones, because it's a theatre brand, so it's generally better than Snazzaroo. And it's the same sort of application again. You can either use water with a spray bottle, or you can use Final Seal or similar with a spray bottle. For that, it's the ones I usually use for Dark Talon, and that stuff will stay on all day as long as I seal it fully. And it's not as expensive as things like grease paint and alcohol-based paint. And the pots are generally about that big for the standard ones, which means if you're wearing a costume, even if it's not a very, shall we say, concealed costume, as long as your boobies are covered, you can generally just slot one of those in there and keep it on you, and then check yourself in the mirror and touch up when you need, which is awesome. Grease paint, we kind of already talked about this stuff because this is what we use for our beards and tangs. And it's generally what most of your normal makeup will be made of, whether you know it or not. Your eyeliners, if they're stick eyeliners, those are grease paint. Lipsticks are basically the same thing. They are grease paints because they're oil-based as opposed to water. That means that they go on really well, which is why with lipsticks you're not sat there doing a coat and then waiting for it to dry, and then another coat, then waiting for it to dry. The colour you put on is the colour it stays. So this stuff's really good if you really need to get a thick colour. If you're a black person and you're trying to put your skin white, this will be the stuff that manages to do it. It's the only stuff that I think we've managed to white up a Marla with through a Rochamaru. So nothing else will work, this stuff does. But because it's oil-based, that means it doesn't dry, which means if you touch yourself, it comes off, which means you have to cover yourself in a lot of powder to get this stuff to seal itself and become dry. In conventions, that's generally okay. Hey, powder. Yeah, translucent powder. Make sure it's translucent, because if it's got any sort of face powder colour in it, then you're just going to end up painting over yourself with peach, essentially. For convention floor stuff, it's generally okay, because yes, you're going to sweat, but the sweat tends to come through the paint and sit on top of it. Sounds a bit gross, but it doesn't wash your paint off. If you're doing it on stage, if you know that you're going to be in a cosplay performance and the lights are extremely hot, there's a downside that it can sort of make the paint melt a little bit. So make sure that you really powder the stuff really, really well to keep it on. This stuff, don't do it. Liquid latex, it's horrible. If you put it on your arms and you're lucky like me and have hairy arms, or even if your arms are not as hairy as mine, what latex does is it obviously goes around the hair, and as latex dries, it shrinks. So if you can imagine liquid rubber shrinking around every hair on your arm, and there's no such thing as a latex remover apart from peeling it off, and that generally means taking the hairs off with it. When I first got my first thing of liquid latex, I went, latex gloves, yeah! And lost most of the hair on the back of my hand, and yeah, it wasn't good. So this stuff, I generally say if you can avoid using it, don't use it. Some people do, but they're also the people who either cover themselves in KY jelly, because that's one of the ways you can put it on and stop it sticking to your hairs, or they shave themselves everywhere. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want stubbly arms. That's not an attractive look. So yeah, generally speaking, don't use it. It is super cheap, and the colours, pretty much the colour you get on the bottle is the colour it's going to be on you when it dries. But for the amount of effort it takes to try and get it off any body hair, especially if it gets in the hair on your head, isn't great. The stuff you do use it for are things like this. Little things like wounds. Latex is the best thing for wounds. A lot of like fancy dress stores sell the pre-made cuts and like vampire bites and things. I thought you were sort of punching the air then. Like, yeah, vampire bites. We very rarely use them. We either just paint it on for very shallow things, or the next easiest way to do it is getting toilet tissue, pulling it apart so it's the thinnest layer of it you can do, dipping it in latex, and you make the wounds out of that. There are I would give you a walkthrough, but there are so many walkthroughs online on YouTube that show you really well how to do it. It's better to see it and figure it out than for me to just tell you. So yeah, that's the stuff I'd recommend it for. Not for stuff like this. Good Lord, that woman has shaved everything. I ain't doing that. This bit's kind of boring. Right, originally, this one's makeup kit for all our makeup was one chewed brush and another chewed brush and a brush that didn't have a handle anymore because the end of it had fallen off. This is the makeup kit now.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
It's like the everything kit. So yeah, sponges are good for doing all over makeup. Brushes are great for everything else. We've pretty much discovered that you don't even have to use makeup brushes. If you have an art store nearby that does the really nice, don't use the natural hair ones, they have to be the acrylic hair brushes. You can go go and get a selection of acrylic hairbrushes for really cheap, and they work just as well as any theatre one. Also, don't buy your makeup brushes and sponges from any theatre store because they will charge you through the nose for them. The latexy ones, or you can also get them non-latex if you're an anti-latex person. We get these from the equivalent of what is our dollar store, and you can get like 50 of them, whereas our theatre store will sell 20 of them for about $10. So it's quite a big difference there. And airbrushes. I don't think this guy actually sells them anymore, but that's irrelevant. They're reasonably cheap online. I think ours cost us about $50 and it still works, and that's about 4 years ago I got it. So if you're going to try out airbrushing, go for a little one first and get the hang of it, and if you end up doing it more and more, go for a bigger one. And that's the end of that. Hooray! 5 minutes, wow, I timed that well. Right, yeah, question times. Hey!
Okay, with the like prosaic pack thing, I do it, and what's your recommendation for joints? Because everyone I've seen, even pictures, everybody does all the time, on your fingers, the joints, it splits.
Yeah. Packs, for people who don't know, is basically prosade and acrylic paint mixed together to make a paint that doesn't come off. It's about as good as alcohol paint, but it's thicker and a little bit less comfortable. But the downside is, like you said, because it's sticky, places like where your skin on your knuckles joins and pulls apart, that's going to make holes. For little places like that, there isn't much you can do about it other than when you stretch your hand out so your skin stretch, powder the hell out of it so it tries not to stick to itself. Because the other thing people will tend to do is miss there, and then they'll put their hands together and then pull it out and get little holes where the paint stuck to itself. So it's just a case of powder the heck out of yourself.
Don't get the no tack if you do it, because you'll look like a lint roll for the rest of the day.
Pretty much.
And it's the same price, no tack versus
And
tack.
also, we have the bonus of there's a place that makes it in Florida, and if you get it when it's cold, if you get it in wintertime, if you live in northern states, it will freeze and no longer be worth anything.
There you go.
We don't have that problem in Florida.
And it
You
can't
can
freeze
buy
here.
packs pre-made. I would say make it yourself because it's like 10 times cheaper. So don't ever, and easier because you can mix your own colours. Any colour you can make with acrylic paints, you can make into packs. Yeah, at the back.
I'm gonna do a Jack Sparrow cosplay. So do you have any pointers I could do with that? 'Cause I'm gonna have trouble with the beard and everything. I wasn't sure if you were.
The beard, crepe wool.
Yeah.
Crepe wool will be the absolute saviour for you. Just like the way you spell crepe paper, look up crepe wool. Really big theatre thing, and you'll be able to get you'll be able to put it on and plait it. That's what we do for our Feely, who has little dangly plaits from his moustache. Crepe wool.
And depending on how well it sticks to your face, if you're making the beads, it might be easy to make beads out of things like papier-mâché, just so they're super, super light and don't put any pressure on pulling it off your face. Yes?
What do you make the scales for your Mystique? Like, what are those?
Those are essentially foam. It's a mix of two. Some of the scales are foam, others are ones that I've sculpted and then cast the entire thing in latex. So it's a mix of the two things. But the ones I had on the back of my hand, if you saw them yesterday, those were just individual bits of cut craft foam that I then glued one by one to my hand and slowly lost throughout the day. But yeah, I love my Mystique.
Fake nails.
Fake nails?
Yeah.
What, for scales? Oh god, no. I wouldn't want something hard on my face, that would hurt. Yes?
I had tried Snazaroo for one time because I wanted to try and do a cosplay. And sadly, I hate to say it, I know a lot of people don't like Homestuck, but I'm using that for that. And when we put on the gray, it turned light blue, and I know it differentiates from the skin tone, but I mean, it was made for a specific reason, and for some reason the gray just, like, it.
Sometimes it's the colours that are mixed together to make the paint in the first place. You know, like if you get a black felt tip and it gets wet and it spreads into different colours. It's basically the same principle. That colour isn't just grey, it's a mix of various colours. So it might be that you didn't mix it well enough to put it on. Otherwise it could be that you've used too much water and it's separating the paint. So if you keep it as dry as possible, it should go on the colour it's meant to. Snazaroo is generally quite good for that. Yeah, like you said, it can also be your skin tone as well. But generally for white people, to be honest, we don't vary a huge amount. We're all basically one just big conglomeration of white. So it should go on the same for most of us.
Also, for those who have like sensitive eyes, when they put the makeup on and stuff, their eyes would water. What would you suggest we do for that so that we can keep our eyes from like messing up the makeup?
For Snazaroo, I'm not sure, because Snazaroo is made for kids, so isn't meant to react to just about anything, is it? paint itself getting into your eyes and hurting, or?
No, it's just being around the eyes. It makes the eyes water.
Barrier cream, I guess, would probably be the best thing to try, which is something that people put on under makeup to try and protect their skin, because it might be the fact that it's just reacting, because the skin around your eyes and on your eyelids is some of the thinnest skin on your body. So it's possible that you're having a skin reaction and your eyes are reacting because of that. So try putting barrier cream or even just moisturizer on underneath can be enough to try and help it. Unfortunately, I've got really easygoing skin, so I don't have sensitive skin problems, so I've never tried it myself. But give it a shot. What do you want, Sirius? Get back to Azkaban.
Baby powder is an alternative or translucent?
Only if you're painting yourself white, because baby powder is coloured white. Translucent powder is coloured translucent. So yeah, if you're painting yourself white, it probably would help because it's going to white you out even more. But if you're doing yourself blue and then putting baby powder on yourself, it's going to make you white, which ain't what you want. Yeah, get it?
If you guys have any other questions, we'll have to do them outside because I don't want to infringe on the next panel at all.
But yeah, thank you for sitting and listening
Thank
to us,
you.
guys.
That's the last of our panels here.